Hales third, Colin Blower fourth ahead of Kent and Maris, but Anthony Reid out in a Tuscan for the first time, working very hard indeed now to try and keep Ian Flux behind him. The two leaders then nose to tail as they come up to Dingle Dell. We're on board with Chris Maris now up behind Colin Blower, fighting his way through Dingle Dell. Maris ahead of Kent, that's pushed him down to 6th place, and John Kent under pressure from Mark Goddard, who is 7th. Out of Stirling's then, the drop down to Clearways and then Clark Curve, and Anthony Reid is going to lead at the end of the lap, but only just because Ian Flux is right there behind him, looking for a way past then as they come across the line. Flux tries the outside, the two cars very nearly touching there as all this power comes in. Down towards paddock they go, but Flux is on the wrong line, and that means that Anthony Reid can maintain that advantage. Through paddock, Reid hugs the inside line, making sure that Flux can't find a way up alongside as they head to Druids. Mark Hales and Colin Blower right on the tail of Ian Flux now, so it's a good four-way fight for the lead, although Colin Blower very determined to find a way past Hales. Out of Graham Hill Bend, a long bottom straight, and Ian Flux still menacing the race leader Anthony Reid as they come now onto the Grand Prix loop once again. TVR chairman Peter Wheeler coming into Graham Hill Bend, he's lost it, he spins, round he goes, off in avoidance there goes number 40 Martin Stewart. Stewart has a big moment all over the grass, but for the fourth race in succession, Peter Wheeler is out. Ian Flux takes over the lead round the outside of Anthony Reid as they dive down the hill. So the Castle Combe winner, Ian Flux, heads Anthony Reid, with Hales and Blower still third and fourth and in touch. A disconsolate Peter Wheeler sits in his Tuscan out of the race, not a happy man. Ian Flux leads, but look at this for second place. Mark Hales on the inside of Anthony Reid, and through goes the reigning champion, or does he? Because Reid is still fighting on the outside as they get to paddock. Hales has the better line, he's just a little bit wider though than Reid there, who tries to fight back on the inside as they come up the hill to Druids. Hales cuts across though his flame-spitting Tuscan in second place, hanging on to that position now, and into the pits heads Nick Cresswell. It hasn't been a happy season for him so far, and Cresswell once again a retirement. Flux from Hales then, first and second, and you can see how the gap between them is coming right down. Mark Hales alongside now as they head to Westfield. Is he going to go through? Yes, he is. Mark Hales takes over the lead, and that pushes Ian Flux down to second place. Still third is Anthony Reid, but only just because it's Colin Blower now right behind him, and Blower looking for a way past. This is Stirling's. Flux runs wide off the circuit, and so too does Anthony Reid. Blower backs off to avoid hitting him, but that was a big moment for all of them, and it's allowed Mark Hales to pull away by a length or so as he comes through Clark Curve. Second is still Flux, and a big moment there from Colin Blower. The car gets very sideways as he carries on now. Somebody else is off. Wow, straight into the tyre barrier. That's Mark Hughes, the journalist who is very much out of the race in the Nigel Mansell Sports Cars entry. Hughes not very happy about that. He's gone off in a big way, and now with the car perched on top of the tyres, he's got to work out how to get out of the car. The marshals on the scene very quickly as they try to extricate the driver. Mark Hughes is okay, the car isn't. On board then with Chris Maris. Big moment coming out of Graham Hill Bend, he manages to control it. Maris carries on now. He's got Anthony Reid right behind him, and Reid going through on the inside. Anthony Reid, who's had a moment and dropped back, fights through, and Chris Maris there ran very wide. Through past both him and Reid has come Mark Goddard and also John Kent. It's all happening here at Brands Hatch as Mark Hales comes through Stirling's with Ian Flux right behind him in second place, and Flux sliding the car still. Down into Clark Curve comes Mark Hales. He's on target for his second victory of 1994. There's Mark Goddard in fourth place. Fifth is John Kent. In sixth is Anthony Reid, and he's off again. Reid goes off onto the grass, gets it back on. But this is becoming a very hectic race for Anthony Reid as Mark Hales turns through Surtees for the final time. Ian Flux in second place, and on this last lap, Flux is really charging now to try and catch up with the leader once again. On board with Chris Maris. You can see the drama ahead of him as Anthony Reid gets sideways, and Maris has lost it. Chris Maris spins, he's facing the wrong way, hasn't hit anything, so he's okay to carry on. Gets back in the race with a big slide, but that has dropped Chris Maris even further away from the top six as Mark Hales comes through to take the checkered flag and win for the second time this season, with Ian Flux finishing a second and a half behind him in second place. Colin Blower finishes in third ahead of Mark Goddard, with John Kent fifth and Anthony Reid out in a Tuscan for the first time, rounding out the top six. With 2 wins, Hales heads the championship as the series now heads to Thruxton. First this week, though, to Thruxton in Hampshire for the 5th round of the TVR Tuscan Challenge. It's Ian Flux lining up on pole position, the man that won at Castle Combe earlier in the season. Alongside Flux on the front row is Chris Maris. He's determined to take victory here today, having led at Alton Park and having been very unlucky on a number of occasions this season. The ever-cheerful Cheshire driver up then on the outside of row 1 of the grid. Row 2 sees Colin Blower lining up alongside Mark Goddard in his final TVR race before moving off to oversee a team in Asia. Row 3, John Kent lining up alongside Mark Newman. Row 4, Perry McCarthy, the ex-Formula 1 driver, and the vastly experienced Jerry Marshall, while completing the top 10 are Bob Sands and Coventry driver Graham Nash, the ex-drag bike manufacturer. Ready for the start of this 11-lap race. Looking back from Ian Flux's car, the lights go green, it's blast off. A tremendous getaway by Chris Maris there from the outside of the front row of the grid. Ian Flux not quite away as quickly as Colin Blower, who moves through on the inside there, up into second position, and looking back from Flux's car there at Mark Goddard. Just touching the grass there on the inside of the road was Jerry Marshall as they come into the complex. Marshall on the outside there of Mark Goddard, swinging through the complex for the first time. Chris Maris it is in the lead, Colin Blower there in second position. The field all comes streaming through. Martin Stewart there going through in number 40. Mark Hales, having started at the back of the grid after problems in practice, trying to work his way up through the field. Ignition problems forced him to start 24th and last on the grid. And the man who has already won twice this year, once at Alton and once at Brands, is flying through the field. There he goes in the red Pro-Tape Tuscan up on the inside of Martin Stewart. And the three leaders are absolutely together, and so too are 4th and 5th side by side. Jerry Marshall there trying to go past Mark Goddard as they come up to the chicane for the first time. But it's Chris Maris in the lead there. Colin Blower going through into second place. Ian Flux is third. They all stand on the brakes and come funneling into the chicane. The black car of Perry McCarthy going through. Mark Hales there ahead of Martin Cross up behind Bob Sands. Whoops, almost touching the back of Sands' car. Hales backed off there to avoid making contact. He controls it and they carry on. There goes John Kent. You can see new for 1994 as we look back from Ian Flux's car, the added front and rear aerodynamic aids just to give the cars a little bit more downforce, but they're still very exciting to watch. Mark Goddard there going through on the inside of Jerry Marshall. Marshall fighting back though as they come through the complex, and Colin Blower got all very sideways there. Mark Goddard up into 4th position now, chasing after Flux. Looking back from Ian Flux's car, the Team Central TVR Tuscan there in 3rd position. Mark Goddard 4th. You can see how close Flux is there to Blower, and Blower going through on the inside of Chris Maris. Maris ran a bit wide there, leaves the door wide open for Colin Blower to challenge. Ian Flux trying to follow him through. Maris running wide through that long right-hander. He slips from 1st to 3rd. It's Blower, it's Flux, it's Maris. 1st, 2nd and 3rd. Mark Goddard in 4th position as they come down to the chicane there to complete the lap. Goddard looking for a way past Maris, who's looking for a way past Flux, who's looking to try and stay in touch with Blower. And Blower's got it sideways. Colin Blower gets it all wrong there. He loses the lead. He loses 2nd place. He sets off again in 3rd, but with the door wide open and the car not yet up to racing speed, he's lost 3rd place as well to Mark Goddard, and John Kent's there in 5th and challenging. All action then here at Thruxton. Colin Blower gets it all wrong at the chicane and slips from 1st to 4th. Mark Goddard up now into 3rd position, looking for a way past Chris Maris, but Blower wants to find 3rd place away from Goddard. Now all that battling going on behind Ian Flux has allowed the new race leader to pull away. Now that's Martin Cross, who's had troubles there at the chicane. He rejoins all over the curbs, but he does rejoin and sets off back into the race. Here's the leader, Ian Flux, the Motoring News track tester, pulling clear of 2nd place man Chris Maris. He's under pressure from the 3rd place man Mark Goddard. Colin Blower right there behind him in 4th place, and Blower looking for a way around the outside as they come to the chicane. It's not really the best place to try, but he's having a good go nonetheless, and he goes round on the outside. Is he going to get 3rd? He is. What an amazing bit of driving from Colin Blower. From 4th to 3rd round the outside. He has a tighter exit there from the chicane, denying Goddard a chance to come back at him on the inside. So Blower is now up into 3rd position as they head to the complex. Down to 4th goes Mark Goddard. 5th behind them now is John Kent, and up to 6th from 24th on the grid is Mark Hales, and that really is progress. There is Hales turning through the complex, charging on in pursuit of the top 5. Can he get any higher up the order? Well, here's Ian Flux pulling well clear of the battle for 2nd position. Flux has set the fastest lap at over 104 miles an hour, and Colin Blower has slowed right down. Colin Blower is in trouble. You can see there a hand in the air. He's in trouble. He's coasting round to the pits. You can also see as Mark Hales goes past him But the reigning champion Hales is closing all the time on John Kent, looking for a way around on the outside. Mark Hales driving brilliantly here today as Ian Flux now comes down to the chicane. Goes down through the gears, he sets the car up, the vastly experienced Flux then clear of Chris Maris in second position. Mark Goddard there in third, about to lap John Ravenscroft with the worked TVR. They accelerate now out of the chicane. Up through the gears, Goddard goes over the line. He's now pressing on in pursuit of Chris Maris, who had a big spin at Brands Hatch, he had a big spin at Alton Park when he was punted out of the lead, and he's losing it again at Thruxton. Maris spins right the way around, the full 360 degrees, but he carries on. Incredible. Guns the engine, going up to the complex. Whoops! Jerry Marshall hits John Kent. They avoid Chris Maris, but hit each other. Jerry Marshall there around the outside of Chris Maris clips the side of John Kent. They both spin, they both look a bit bemused by it all. Everybody else closes up to them. What an incredible race this is. Out of the complex, John Kent spins it away. John Kent loses the Norweb back Tuscan. He's facing now in the right direction, but maybe the car was damaged in that collision with Jerry Marshall. Now, let's look at it again. That smoke is Chris Maris rejoining. This is John Kent, and that clonk into the side was Jerry Marshall's car. It knocks John Kent sideways. Chris Maris continues there, unaffected by all this, and Kent and Marshall sort themselves out and set off, with Jerry Marshall just going ahead of Kent, who tries to brave it out around the outside of the complex. Marshall gets sideways. Kent now comes into the second part, loses the back end, round it goes. It spins through the full 360 degrees, and it drops him right down the order. Ian Flux then, on target for his second win of the season. He won at Castle Combe, and it looks as though he's going to win here at Thruxton as well. Heading down into the chicane, Ian Flux then, who has made it look relatively easy, having found his way into the lead, turns right, then left, and then right. Ian Flux charges out of the chicane. The checkered flag is at the ready. A commanding victory by over 7 seconds. Ian Flux wins then here at Thruxton in the 5th round of the TVR Tuscan Challenge. A fine second for Mark Goddard on his swan-song Tuscan outing. Third is Mark Hales from 24th on the grid, while Chris Maris, Graham Nash and Bob Sands complete the top 6 after a cracking race here in Hampshire. The top 3 on the podium. Victory to Ian Flux in the centre, with Mark Goddard and the bearded Mark Hales completing the top 3. Hales still leads the championship, while Flux is closing. For the TVR Tuscan Challenge, there's a big surprise for the regulars. Chris Hodgetts, who's been racing this year in the Dunlop Rover Turbo Cup and who is a former Tuscan champion, is back having a one-off outing in the TVR Centre Yellow Tuscan. He lines up on the front row of the grid alongside Colin Blower, and Hodgetts is a man they all have to beat. Ian Flux, who had a disastrous qualification race, sits at the tail end of the 19-strong field. He has got to work his way through as we wait for the 15-lap race to get underway. It does so now. The green lights come on, and away they go, with Hodgetts getting a very good start. He's on the inside of Colin Blower. Can he find a way past? No, he can't. Blower it is who leads then from Hodgetts as they go into Tarzan for the first time, with John Kent in third. Nick Cresswell, number 33, going around the outside there of Martin Cross, as Blower, Hodgetts and Kent, first, second and third, make their way up to the left-hander. Mark Hales running very wide indeed with the red Pro-Tape car, and a challenge made on the inside there by 35 Graham Nash. Flux there, trying to work his way up through the field as John McQuilkin rounds out the field at the moment. Blower and Hodgetts trying to break away already from John Kent, who is there in third place. It's Chris Maris in fourth, the Cheshire driver, doing very well indeed here at Zandvoort. Now, what can Hodgetts do about Blower? Former champions both. 1992 champion Blower, 1990 champion Hodgetts, and they are on their way now up towards the long right-hander of Boss Wheat. Turning through, accelerating then, up ready to cross the line. It's still Blower in the lead. Hodgetts running very wide indeed there, raising the dust on the outside of the circuit. And Blower now hugging the inside line, looking at the pit boards as they come across the start and finish straight. And now down into Tarzan with Hodgetts trying to go around on the outside. There in third place is John Kent, the Preston Rest Home owner. And Hodgetts challenging Blower, the Hinckley Garage owner, for the lead. Kent dropping back a little bit, but he's safe for the time being in third. And Hodgetts is giving Blower a really tough time now. Nose to tail, Hodgetts looking on the inside, the door is closed. Third Kent, fourth is still Chris Maris, fifth is championship leader Mark Hales, sixth there Gavin Cooper, seventh is Graham Nash, and number 8 Peter Wheeler, TVR's chairman, yet to finish in a round of the championship this year. Two leaders, nose to tail again, with Hodgetts running wide, coming out of Boss Wheat. but you can see the way that they are pulling away from Kent in third, who in turn is pulling well clear of Chris Maris there in fourth. The two leaders making their way through Tarzan as the rest of this very full field comes pouring its way out of Borsweit. And there on the right-hand side of the screen is Ian Flux trying to dive up alongside him, going past Gavin Cooper, which he does successfully, and also through on the inside of Graham Nash. Ian Flux really driving splendidly here in Holland. The Team Central TVR now working its way up through the field. Flux right on the limit there, sideways as he throws it through. Chris Hodgetts now in the lead of the race. Colin Blower down to second. Chris Hodgetts, the man who leads this year's Rover Turbo Championship, slotting in Tuscan appointments when his calendar will permit. Blower there in second place. John Kent in third, having a disappointing start to his season, but things do look as though they're improving now as Blower tries to find a way past Hodgetts, as here they come out of the Borsweit, over the line. Out go the pit boards. Blower's team urging him on. He tries a wide approach to Tarzan through the right-hand hairpin now. In comes the power. These very evenly matched 4.5 litre Tuscans, the rear-wheel drive cars, making their way down to the tight left, with Blower all the time giving Hodgetts a tough time. Hodgetts, though, covers the inside line. No way for Blower to go past him there. Now they make their way up the hill, as here is Mark Hales. He is now up into third place. Chris Maris is fourth. Go through, he says to Ian Flux. He does so, and Flux even finds time for a little wave to say thank you to Chris Maris. Very gentlemanly stuff, TVR Tuscan Racing. But Chris Hodgetts is now starting to break away from Colin Blower. Race leader Chris Hodgetts working his way through the newer section of Zandvoort, the former home of the Dutch Grand Prix that's been tightened and slowed down in recent seasons, and Blower is on his way now to the Borsweit. Hodgetts, though, ahead of him, and the former Tuscan champion, double British Touring Car Series winner Chris Hodgetts is on his way, it seems, for a victory. Blower is now closing up. Remember how we saw Colin Blower drop back? Well, maybe he was just conserving the car, because now he's in there fighting once again. He tries the outside of Hodgetts as they go through the hairpin, runs out of road though, that forces him up on the curb and onto the grass, so he drops back once more. Hodgetts looking increasingly safe in the lead. Colin Blower going through there in second place. Down to Tarzan comes number 33, Nick Cresswell, as a challenge made on the inside there by Peter Wheeler on Gavin Cooper very nearly works. Chris Maris just ahead of the pair of them. He's been dropping back steadily as this race has worn on. Cooper looking for a way past Maris. He's got the inside line, but Chris Maris is not letting him go through, and Peter Wheeler is right up behind them both now. Some very good racing here, entertaining the Dutch spectators. Now John Kent going into the hairpin in third is being caught by new fourth baseman Ian Flux. Flux, who started 19th on the grid, remember, now charging up through the field. Championship leader Mark Hales going through fifth, and there is Cresswell, then Maris, and still the Cooper and Wheeler battle continues. A sideways Hodgetts making his way round now with Colin Blower chasing after him, but it rather looked as though Chris Hodgetts is going to return to TVR Tuscan Racing in fine style. Out comes the checkered flag, and Hodgetts wins at Zandvoort. Colin Blower comes across the line in second place. John Kent on target for third, being caught all the time by Ian Flux. The flag waves to the back markers, and there in the background are Kent and now Flux. It looks as though John Kent will just hang on to that third place, but Ian Flux, up from 19th on the grid, takes fourth. A look at the top six then, with Hodgetts and Blower and Kent in the top three. Flux finishing fourth ahead of Mark Hales, with Nick Cresswell in sixth. In the championship, 16 points now separate leader Hales from second place man Ian Flux, with Colin Blower third, ahead of John Kent, who is fourth. The TVR Tuscan Challenge here at Donington, the seventh round of a very exciting series. Chris Hodgetts on pole position, Ian Flux alongside him, the lights go green and it's blast off. The run down towards Redgate Corner, a man to watch, Steve Cole, charging through from the back of the grid. He only had fourth gear in practice and he's charging as they go into the corner. 21 there, Martin Kraus going around the outside of John Kent, he's off onto the grass. Off goes Martin Kraus, he should be able to rejoin though. Chris Hodgetts in the lead, diving down the hill towards the old hairpin for the first time, with Ian Flux right behind him in second place. Colin Blower is third, Mark Hales fourth, fifth is Chris Maris, and the rest of the field all battling amongst themselves. On their way now, up towards McLean, Hodgetts and Flux, first and second, Colin Blower in third under great pressure from reigning champion Mark Hales. This is Coppice for the first time. Mark Hales just managing to go through into third position now, ahead of Colin Blower. Nick Cresswell moving up on the inside there of Gavin Cooper, and Mark Newman going through on old Nigel Mansell tyres. Hard on the brakes, down through the gears, into the S's. Hodgetts clobbering the curbs, so too Ian Flux. 4.5 litre V8 Tuscans really sounding superb around Donington, and the two leaders breaking away now. Ian Flux right up behind Chris Hodgetts. A challenge made there by John Kent as they come down to the Melbourne hairpin, but looking back now from Hodgetts' car. Running wide over the curbs, completing lap 1 of the 10. Chris Hodgetts leads here at Donington. The rest of the field all pouring through. A big spin there, off goes number 35. That's Nick Harrison. Onto the grass, the car pirouetting once again as he tries to rejoin. He does so, but that's dropped him right to the tail of the field. Now this is Chris Hodgetts revving the engine. He's got problems, he's got major problems. He's losing the lead. Ian Flux goes past him, but it sounds to me as though Hodgetts must have some sort of a gearbox problem. You can hear him fishing for gears. Now he's found them again, and he's blasting out of the old hairpin. He's right on the tail of Flux, looking to try and get the lead back once again. So whatever the problem was with Hodgetts' car, it's now cured itself. He did sound, though, suspiciously like a gearbox problem. He's alongside. No, he's not. Locking up there. Hodgetts just unable to go through past Flux, who shuts the door very vigorously. This is stirring stuff.